Welcome back to Round Sailing. Last week we did a little garden project and then we continued preparing for laminating the inside of the hull. Johan also built a platform stairs to get in and out of the boat easier.
Gets top score. 5 strawberries out of 5.
It's the middle of summer. Vera is on summer holiday and is spending a few days with Johan's mother. I was sanding the epoxy Johan added last week, and Johan was measuring for the fiberglass. Johan cut the fiberglass and prepared 16 pieces.
We're almost ready now to start laminating the first section of the inside of the hull. Yesterday we did a lot of prep work, and today I still have some prep work to do. And the plan is to start laminating once the temp is going down, so around 3 o'clock or so this afternoon. And I have changed the way we're going to do this slightly compared to how we did it on the outside of the hull. The main problem now working on the inside of the hull is to reach all the areas of the cloth. It's 1,270 millimeters wide, and that was a problem already on the outside. That was really hard work reaching the other end because you couldn't go on the other side because that was freshly laminated. And now that will be an even bigger problem since you can't walk on the wall. You could of course use ladders on the outside of the hull, but it will be a problem reaching down into the hull. And what we're going to do is to fold this cloth in the middle like that. So instead of 1,270 millimeters, we will have half of that, 635 millimeters. And that's pretty easily to reach across with rollers. So we can keep good pressure on the rollers because that's important. It's not just only to reach, you need to have a lot of pressure on them as well, an even pressure to get all the air out and get the cloth really saturated and all of that. This cloth is actually a bit lighter than the one we used on the outside. This is 450 gram and we use 600 gram on the outside. The initial plan was to use 3 layers of this, which is just below 60% of the glass that we've been using on the outside. And that was, on the limit. So my initial plan was to do 3 layers of this and then add 200 grams of twill weave on top of that, just to come up to the correct percentage of the amount of glass that we have on the outside. But now, by folding it, we will have 4 layers since we want to have everything wet in wet. So we're skipping the twill weave on top since it's not really needed on the inside. The print through isn't really a problem here. So instead, the hull will be a little bit heavier on the inside, but we will have the correct amount of glass compared to the outside straight away. Actually a little bit more. We will have 1,800 grams of glass per square meter on the inside, and we have 2,400 on the outside. So a little bit more balanced, you could say. That's not really an issue when you're doing strip planking like we're doing. If it would have been PVC foam, then it's more important to have a fully balanced sandwich, like you have the same amount of glass on the outside and the inside. But the amount of glass we have on the outside here is mostly for abrasion, that you want to have a thicker shell on the outside since you can hit things. We had a plan that we could of course cut the cloth in the middle and just have one layer but half the width and do only 3 layers. But then you have more overlaps, and there's quite a lot of work just cutting the fiberglass. Now we're measuring the same amount of batches of epoxy since we have the full weight still in one cloth, in one length.
I'm doing some last epoxy filling before we start to laminate. We're gonna start in a few hours. I'm just filling in some small gaps and holes, and while Johan is measuring all the epoxy. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and now we're gonna start to laminate. We have 16 lengths of fiberglass prepared, and we'll see if we can make all of that. Then it will be like almost 1/3 of this side of the hull. We're prepared that it's gonna be quite different to laminate the inside of the hull now than it was on the outside. And it's gonna be interesting to see how hard it will be and easy or difficult. This was a real pain. It's so warm in these suits. It's like difficult to breathe. And it's super hard to get the cloth or to punch out all the bubbles, air bubbles. So we're giving up now after two pieces. Johan is cutting the peel ply, and we'll put that on and quit for today and have to come up with a way that is a bit easier. I hope that we don't have to do this during the nights, because that's going to be very hard. Johan has that syringe, and he's making a hole and sucking out the air. that is in the bubble, and it disappears immediately. So he mixed some epoxy, but we don't need it. It's just enough making the hole so the air can go out, be released. There are so many. How sweaty are you? You're dripping.
I'm totally soaked inside this
and you're
plastic
and
suit.
wearing underwear. Or
Yes.
I just have a t-shirt on.
Oh.
So hard. We're
Yeah.
exhausted and we've done 2 pieces.
Yeah, this definitely didn't go as we planned. Yeah, I need to think a little bit about this, what's causing it, but probably it's still a bit too warm. I mean, we started pretty late, around 3 o'clock, but I think it's actually warmer now than when we started. And it's almost, I don't know, 5:30 or so now. So maybe we have to start even later. But still, I think it's strange because I didn't have these type of problems when I did this bottom piece here without any primer. And the same with shame plate reinforcements. There's no air bubbles in those. So I'm not so sure. Maybe we started a bit earlier today and maybe it's a bit warmer this late in the afternoon. I have to check our temperature log that we have. Yeah, the syringe worked really well actually. So we got the air bubbles out, but maybe there will be some in the morning and then we just have to fill those with another syringe with epoxy, so we fill the voids afterwards. So here you can see the problem. The temp is still going up and it's almost 7 o'clock in the evening. And this hasn't been the case when I've been laminating just a few days ago. So this is definitely a lesson learned. We need to check this before we start. Because this is what's causing those air bubbles to form beneath the fiberglass. Yeah, things doesn't always go according to plan, and this was one of those occasions. There's quite many air bubbles, a few of them up here, a few on that side, and a few of them down here that we need to fix. A few lessons learned. And I think the biggest one is we need to check that data logger before we start laminating, because we started way too early yesterday. I checked the data logger now this morning, and the temp, it's continued to go up all the way until 8:30 in the evening. So the correct time to start would have been around 8 to make sure that we were working in an environment where the temp was moving down all the time, to prevent these air bubbles from forming and off-gassing of the wood. But it was a bit strange yesterday. It was a weather shift, so this warm air, it moved in. Normally, when the weather is stable, the temp is supposed to come down around 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon when the sun is becoming weaker. But that doesn't matter if the whole air mass is shifting, and that was what happened yesterday. The folding of the fiberglass, that worked really well to keep the width down so we could quite easily reach everywhere on the surface here with the rollers. The challenge is, of course, that it takes a bit longer to saturate the cloth on the saturation table. But then again, it's a bit warmer now, it's summer, so compared to how it was to saturate the cloth in the winter, it's much faster now. Yeah, so there's quite many things that are quite different now, working in the summertime compared to how it was laminating the outside of the hull. One thing is that, yeah, of course, the temperature, working in the wintertime, it was cold, and the worry was to get the epoxy to cure, and also to get the fiberglass saturated, because when it's cold, the viscosity of the epoxy is pretty thick. So that was also a challenge. But we have that heated lamination table, which helped a lot. And also, it was easier in a way doing this in the winter time, because we had that plastic around the hull, and we have a heater, so we can just control the environment and make sure to working in a downward trend with the temp by just moving down on the thermostat every hour. Now in the summer, that's a bit different. It's a lot harder to control the environment in here. We could, of course, bring in big AC units to cool everything down and still have plastic around the hull, but we don't have those, and big ones are pretty expensive and takes a lot of power. One thing that we have learned now working on the inside is that a primer layer of epoxy isn't really needed, especially since we're using a saturation table. I know that a lot of people have commented on this with the worry that the cedar will wick too much of the epoxy from the fiberglass, so we get a starved laminate. But that's not the case. Actually, the cedar doesn't wick a lot of epoxy at all on this face of the wood. Of course, end grain would have been totally different, but that's not the case here. So you can't really compare it to like balsa or anything like that. This behaves way different than that. So it's time to start fixing these air bubbles and do all the prep work for tonight. And hopefully we will have a better outcome tomorrow.
Ron 3 was about to get some surgical treatment. It's very satisfying to watch the epoxy fill the gaps.
So it's time for round 2 today. It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and today the temperature started to go down already at 4.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed now that it's gonna be easier this time.
And a bit cooler today as well.
And yeah, you can already feel that it's cooler in the air.
Yeah.
are done for tonight. We did 3 pieces of fiberglass and it went so much better today. That's really good. The 2 first are always hard because what's underneath is dry since you did it last time. It has already cured. But as soon as you get into you're really wet with all the layers, it's so much easier and it goes faster. No problems with the air bubbles today. It's definitely another technique as we talked about already. And I think the most difficult is actually in the start, in the beginning, at the top. Because it's heavy, it wants to slide down while you are unwrapping or rolling out the cloth. One person really has to stand there and hold, and then we get the clamps as soon as possible. What else did we do different today? We also cut the cloth where we folded it.
No folding crease.
No folding crease. And I don't know, did that make a difference?
A little bit. Because before we needed to cut that crease so it didn't stand proud or come up.
It's really cool and nice in here now. I'm not sweaty today actually, and I even have pants. I see that you're sweaty. But I also changed mask, and I think this mask was a little bit better. Yeah, so all in all, good. And I think that's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for watching, as always, and special thanks to everyone who contributes and support our production, because it's thanks to you that we can share this crazy journey. So you can continue seeing us like this.
See you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.